Start the meeting. Hi, everybody. This is WIA's second speaker event, and today we have Kenneth Greenblatt, who is a 3D animator.
Hey guys, call me Kenny. I only got called Kenneth when my parents were yelling at me when I was a kid. So, okay, so I'm really old, and I can't believe I'm actually giving this talk because I started UCF in 2003, same year I graduated high school. So I started uh 20 years ago, and I graduated, I think it was in 2008. I had a very bumpy road in this industry. Started immediately with UCF. When I started, I never thought I would get into 3D, even specifically animation. I started with graphic design actually, and the really nasty thing happened to, let's just say, maybe me and 30, 40, 50 other students. The graphic design program kind of got 86'd and thrown out the window. And what they did was they took the graphic design program had a bunch of digital art classes and then a bunch of studio art classes. And what they did was they tore them apart and made two separate tracks, but they grandfathered in students like me who were on the original graphic design track. And they were like, no, 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 you could still be in graphic design. Just know that your digital art classes are under this, track, and then your studio art classes are under this track. And then what happened was, because I was technically not in either track, I always got second priority. And it was just semester after semester, I kept getting bumped out of these classes because I wasn't a digital art major and I wasn't, a traditional artist. And it started to get really frustrating. And I decided to take an elective 3D uh, animation class from Maya because I always wanted to at least see if I could do 3D. I took to it like a fish to water, and so began my journey. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Visual Language, the program at UCF for animation, but at the time it was being run by an ex-Disney guy named Paul Curasi, and apparently to get in was a daunting task. Like I remember I was never the best artist, I was never the best sculptor, I was never the best sketcher, I was never the best anything. But I wanted so badly to get into this visual or excuse me, this limited acceptance program. And there was a guy who was a year older than me, and he was an amazing artist. And I saw him walking down the hall, and I said, "Hey, how's visual language going?" And he said, "Well, I just had my portfolio review and they rejected me." And I just thought that that was absolutely insane that such a talented artist was rejected. And then it turns out Paul Kirasi left UCF, and control of the program went over to a couple other teachers like Max Croft and Darlene Hadrika. About a year later, I had already started taking some 3D courses and I applied to the program. I got in, but because I'm now switching my major for a second time, I ended up being at UCF like I think an extra 3 semesters or something like that. So it took me 5 years to graduate. Finally finished visual language, and I decided I want to go into video games because I don't know, just it's what I wanted to do. Um, and I applied to FIA. I hope you guys are familiar with Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy. And again, it was a daunting portfolio acceptance, process. Got in by the skin of my teeth with like a professor recommendation. Uh, and then so began my 18-month journey to get my master's in video game design. So my whole situation with UCF was bumpy. And then what happened was I want to say that maybe FIA wasn't the best place for me at the time. I so badly wanted to animate and like tell stories and have acting pieces and action pieces, and video games are not necessarily the best place for that. So I was kind of a fish out of water in that situation. It was rough for me the first couple of semesters because I had to kind of I had to shave down my skill set to more procedural style animation, like making things work in loops and cycles and having a whole bunch of technical implementation that I wasn't used to. And I finished FIA, and then I hit the job market, and I'm bussing tables. And that was rough. That was a pretty big wake up call that I wasn't ready for the animation industry and I wasn't ready for the game industry. So I decided to go to Animation Mentor, and I did their character acting course for, I don't remember how long, maybe 13 months or something like that. And then when I was done, I did what pretty much every fresh-faced kid does and just shotgun blast my resume out all over the internet as far and as wide as I could get it. And lo and behold, I get a response from this guy in China. And it was a little bit of a shock. Like I was at least hoping for something in North America, but they assured me that everything could be done remote. And I don't know if you guys are aware, Shanghai, China, most of that area is 12 hours ahead. So I began working like a weird shift to kind of be on the same time as most of their guys. And I show up to work day one, and they give me this beautiful archer, right? And they send me the FBX, and I open it up in Maya, and the character's in a T pose, and I'm just like, okay, cool, like beautiful model, I love it. Like, how do we move forward? Where's the rig? And they're like, no, 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 you rig. And I just broke out into a cold sweat. I was like, I'm an animator. I've never really rigged before. I don't know what I'm doing. So I had to crack open an old book called the Art of Rigging Volume One, and I had to learn real fast to get the job done. First character, the archer, was pretty rough, and the next character was like a warrior, wasn't so bad. And I eventually, over the course of 2 years, got the hang of it, and I animated. It must have been north of 14, 15 characters, animated, rigged, no cloth simulation. Everything was done by hand, and it was a really big learning experience. Unfortunately, the job paid absolutely peanuts. It was a very humbling 2 years, to say the least. A lot of ramen noodles and stuff like that. But it was such a great, amazing learning experience because I had so much artistic control over the animations. Like I would film myself like with the lid to a trash can and a broom, and I was like doing Spartan moves, and I was sending them, different takes, like, hey, which one do you guys want, and how do you want it timed, and when's the attack mark, or like the attack flag versus like the end flag, and all that amazing stuff. And unfortunately, um at first the game did great. We showed up on the front page of the Apple iStore, Android store, and it was like 30,000 users the first week. Money started coming in, and it was a pretty cool game. And then after the first week, we drop off the front page of those stores, and then our user retention just went into the toilet, and we were bringing in no money on any of the microtransactions or anything. And the lead artist, who I grew very close with, he was, kind of whispering in my ear. He's like, "Hey, so I think what's happening is they spent so much money on production that they never thought about marketing." And sure enough, like 2 months later, the studio just couldn't keep running at such a big loss, and they closed up. And it was a super rough time because I poured my heart and soul into that. And then I floundered for a bit. I did the same thing again, shotgun my resume out everywhere. I think at the time I wrote a cover letter to Epic Games, and in the cover letter I was like, I can't wait to be a part of the Sony family. Or like I got my cover letters messed up, so I knew I torched my chances with that. So be careful when you're writing your cover letters. And then I got a call from a local recruiter in Orlando for a simulation company that did educational games that were paid for by the government. It was like a really weird situation. It's not anybody's dream. Like nobody goes to college, nobody goes to animation school and says, you know what I want to do? I want to make really boring government educational games. But hey, you got to pay the bills sometimes. And I started there, and I continued actually rigging, and that's when I actually started to get into scripting as well. I picked up Mel, which everybody laughs at me because Python is now the standard, not Mel. And I spent, I think, like 15 months there, and then their project ended, and the next one needed no animation. So they cut me loose. Once again, out in the wild, trying to figure out life, trying to figure out what to do, how to pay my bills. And then I get a call from 2K. And that was a really big deal. Like the first company, Substantial Games, was an indie studio in Shanghai. Second studio was just a simulation company that did educational games that were funded on government contracts. It was like it was to recertify doctors and nurses in performing a cricothyrotomy. And if you don't know what that is, do not Google it. Like for the love of God, don't Google that word. It's disgusting. And then I got the call from 2K, and they sent me an art test that was from Motion Builder, and I panicked because I hadn't worked in Motion Builder since FIA, and now that was 2009, and now we're talking about 2017. Somehow I managed to fumble my way through that art test, passed. They said, "How fast can you come out to California?" I was just like, "I don't know. I have a place and a wife and a cats. Like, how fast do you need me to come out there?" They're like, "How's 2 weeks sound?" I'm like, "How about three?" And okay, we'll give you 3 weeks. So it turned out my wife, who was then my fiance, she actually stayed behind in Orlando, and I moved out there by myself, see if we could figure it out. And she came and she visited twice over the course of 6 months. But I was doing motion capture cleanup for cinematic stuff in for WWE 2K18. And at the end of like 6 months, they came to me and they said, "Listen, we're sorry to say this, but this has actually been the best year for us as far as not having problems and not having an overload of content." I was just like, "Okay, is that good?" They're like, "Not for you." I was like, "What?" Like we don't have any more work. Like the project is wrapping up. Like we did a great job this year. So, your contract is ending, and we'll call you in, 3 months. 3 months is a long time to not be employed in a place as expensive as California. It's really rough out there. Property values through the roof. It's just everything is insane. So I spent the next 2 weeks there applying for a couple more jobs. Like there was a place in Glendale, I think it was called Age of Learning. They actually flew me out and back the same day. I didn't get that job because I told them I don't really ever play children's educational games, and they didn't like that. I guess I was just being honest. And then I had an interview with Full Moon. I didn't finish the art test in time, so I think they kind of just tossed my test in the garbage after just briefly looking at it. And then I started talking with an EA recruiter. Went back to Orlando. EA picked me up for 1 year contract, then another 1 year contract. And on the sunset month of my last contract, they hired me full time. I stayed there doing motion capture cleanup until May 19th of this year, and they reported company-wide layoffs. And unfortunately, I got swept up in like the second round of it. But lucky for me, I only spent, I think, 2 weeks without a job, and I reached out to a recruiter on LinkedIn. I saw a job posting and the application process. Here's a tip for you guys. I know I've been talking for a long time already, but um, the I read the entire job description, right? And it seemed to me like a perfect fit. I ticked every single box for that job except one, which was previous knowledge or previous experience with 3D Studio Max, which I've never opened up in my life. The problem was is the application process on LinkedIn was one of those like smart applications. It's just like, is your name correct? Is your phone number correct? Is this your email? The resume you have on file? Like it was three questions. It was, do you have previous, how many years industry experience do you have? And I wrote like 11 or something. How many years motion builder experience do you have? And I put maybe 7. And it was like, how many years experience do you have with 3D Studio Max? It was 0. But I wasn't going to use that process to apply to the job because I only passed like 66% of that, quick apply. And I was like, no, no, no. But the description shows all these other things that I I think I fit to the T. So I reached out to the recruiter who made that post personally, and I said, listen, I think I'm a perfect fit for this job, but the application process is crap. He agreed with me, and you know, one thing led to another, and then I started working at iRacing.com, which is a racing simulation game, which is like super hardcore. If you ever see the guys or girls, like they have a whole chair set up and there's like four TVs and they have a steering wheel and there's like a shifter, like that's those people. They're hardcore about the game. And I've been there doing motion capture stuff ever since. And that's my journey from 2003 until 20 years later, right now, basically.
Thank you so much. We will move into the Q&A section now. Does anybody have any questions? Please either raise your hand with the raise your hand emoji or type them in the chat and we will get to them.
That boring, huh?
I guess a lot of people probably either have dinner or class right now. I
Yeah,
have a
it's all good.
question.
Sure.
What has been your favorite part about your journey so far?
Being forced to be uncomfortable. Every the human creature is one who likes, repetition, habit, and comfort. We are, creatures of comfort. And I remember I was out in California, and it was like one of the hardest times of my life. I was away from my fiance, I was away from my family, I was working in motion capture. I never really, did that before. And I read this super corny inspirational quote, but it stuck with me, and it was be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I I s- I swear to you, I should have got it tattooed on my forehead, because I think about that quote every single day. When something bothers me, when something makes me uncomfortable, instead of running from it or trying to find repetition or habit or patterns and be comfortable in life, it's I'm uncomfortable because I'm being forced to change. And I have really, really embraced that. And because of that, I learned how to rig. Because of that, even though I'm terrible at it, I learned how to do a little bit of scripting. And because of that, I learned how to do motion capture editing. And my favorite part of the entire journey is just the it forcing me to evolve and become more than what I had seen for myself in the future.
Thank you so much. We have a in-chat question asking, how many years of experience would you say a typical 3D animator needs in a 3D animation program to be proficient enough to put it on their resume or work with a company that uses said program?
Zero. You need no experience. You need skill and talent. So if you're the type of look, I was never the fastest, the strongest, the biggest, smartest, all of that. But I kept at it nonstop. I would always ask people who were better than me for animation critiques, portfolio critiques, art critiques, everything. And I really took everything that they said to heart, and I tried to incorporate it to get better. As much as I tried to be a better animator, there were always people who just had a natural talent who were better than me, and they blew my mind. Those people got jobs before me. It didn't matter if I had 8 years experience. If a company can open up this person's demo reel and just be like, wow, forget this Kenny person. This is where it's at with, this. It's look, if you put in 8 hours a day, right, every day for a year, yeah, I'm sure you could become proficient in Motion Builder or Maya or Blender, like any of those 3D packages. But it's more about what are you putting into it and what are you getting out of it. And I know that's I don't sorry if no swing. I know that's a shitty answer. I know, because it's when you're in school, you want real tangible, oh, it's 18 months this and then three years this, and you need certification in this, and boom, you get a job. It's not. Sometimes the recruiter just looks at your CV or whatever, and they're like, okay, it's in English and they're over 18, and then they throw it in the garbage and they look at your demo reel. And if your demo reel is like what the company is looking for, then you're a perfect fit basically. So unfortunately, it could work against you sometimes because they will, occasionally look at your CV and say, oh, well, they have 0 years experience in the industry, and then not even look at your demo reel. So that's why sometimes you really got to bang on doors and hound recruiters to, look at your demo reel before simply looking at your industry experience.
Thank you so much. Izzy has a question.
Hi, Kenny. Yes, I think your story was really great. It really drew me in as soon as I joined the meeting, and I was like, oh my goodness, you went through so many ups and downs and different stages of your job to get to where you are today.
Thank you.
But I wanted to ask you, how do you like your work now in iRacing, doing the motion capture stuff?
Um, I really like it for two reasons. For one, I was able to, and this is personal preference completely, so this is subjective. After leaving EA, I really wanted to stay in either like the sports ecosphere or like some kind of action game with shooters or fighting or something. Being able to jump from EA working on Madden and college football to staying in that sports ecosphere with racing, it's I like it because it's kind of I don't know. I like sports more than maybe necessarily like storytelling games, even though there's nothing like a game with a good story. But also what I like very specifically about iRacing over EA is EA is and not all their games, but their annual titles. It's all about quantity, not so much about quality. And when I got to EA, 2K was, man, they would grind it in me like the finger is 2 pixels going through over here, and we need you to redo the shot. And it was such this intense focus on quality that I felt I don't know, I felt constantly pressured. And then I got to EA, and EA was just like, dude, you spent 2 days on this one tackle. Like, what's going
Mhm.
on? And I'm like, no, I'm trying to get the arm to, just touch the shoulder pad, and the guy's arm is near his neck. And they're like, nobody cares, man. Like, just get it done. It's many, and we have 70,000 animations in the game. You have IK systems, different body types. Like, just get it done. Oh, okay, sure. I'm sorry. And then the next 6 years of my life was just get it done. Now I get back to iRacing, and I have a lot more experience in motion capture, cleanup, and sort of hand keying using Motion Builder. And there's this back to basics of intense focus on quality, and it kind of I feel like an artist again instead of just like a technical or yeah, like a technical animator, because so much of my stuff at EA was okay, it's done. Now I need to get it into the engine. I need to debug. I need to test. I need to prototype on top of the existing systems. But now that I'm back, or I don't want to say back at iRacing, but now that I'm at iRacing, I'm back to like, yes, I did this thing, and now somebody's looking at my animation, telling me what's wrong with it, telling me to go back and fix it, be a better artist. And it was like a big kind of shock to the system of like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm an animator, I totally forgot. Like, and it's really nice and refreshing to get back to that state, I guess.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So you see more in your element, it seems, now that you get to do more artsy stuff.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, some of it's really boring, like just a hand on top of a steering wheel, but it's the fact that like somebody is looking at my hand on top of a steering wheel and telling me like, hey man, the thumb by like what's the word, anatomically doesn't line up to like how the radius and ulna are spun with the wrist rotation, and a real thumb would be more like this instead of like this. And when you're gripping like this, you have wrinkles in the finger, so you really got to sell the etc etc etc. I hadn't had that since 2017, so it's really nice to have an artist bark at me in like a friendly encouraging way, if you will.
Yeah, give more like aggressive critiques, I
Yeah,
guess.
aggressive critiques, exactly.
And you said you worked for this company in China or
Mhm.
in Japan, or which one was it?
They were in Shanghai in China.
Oh, okay. And I was wondering, were they that strict as well when viewing your work?
No, no, not at all. They gave me so much artistic freedom, and maybe the lead artist, the art lead would come back to me and is just like, uh, maybe you can sell this a little bit harder, or maybe this needs to be a little bit softer. But he was never like drilling me on frame by frame animation, or like pop poses like, well, it could be more contrapposto if you lean it this way. And it was just like, no, it's just
Mhm.
like, yeah, it looks good. Just clank him over the head a little harder. So,
Oh, that's cool. That's surprising. I thought they'd be pretty strict.
yeah, they
Like
were
for
super small indie studio. So it was just like, yeah, you're an animator. You know what's best. Cool. Let's get it into the game. So,
and you've jumped from so many jobs, and something I worry about with myself is being able to transition to many others and still sustain myself. Like, how did you, when you knew a contract was ending, how did you prepare at a time to like go somewhere, like to prepare for the next step and still stay on your
um,
feet to provide for your family and such?
yeah, ice cream and anxiety medication. Look, I'm not gonna bullshit you. It was tough. It was stressful. It gave me levels of anxiety that I don't know how to convey with English words. Uh, when I knew my first EA uh, contract was ending, I felt terrible. I felt used. I felt unappreciated. I felt um, that I got to get all this crap out of the computer and put it into my portfolio now, and I got to get clearance on my shots if I could, present them. And now I got to redo my CV. I got to redo my demo reel. I got to shoot out all these new resumes to all these different companies, and it was tough. Like I don't want to sugarcoat this. There's a joke. Let me say this. There's a joke. What do you call the person who graduates at the bottom of their medical class? Doctor.
I don't know.
Doctor.
Oh,
What do you there's no equivalent for that joke of somebody who graduates at the bottom of their animation school. There's a strong chance that they end up doing something different, or end up working in like procedural animation or simulation, or what's that big missile company out here? Uh, the huge contractor. They're like right across the way from UCF. I forget the name. Lockheed Martin, right? Like you may not end up getting your dream job. And that's tough because most people, if you go and get a business degree, you go work at any company in any city in any state, and then you graduate doing animation, and you find out, well, there's only a couple studios over here, a couple over here, a couple on the West Coast, and it's really tough. But the thing is if you want it, you stay with it. Like how did I provide for my family? For 1 year, when I was working for China, they were talking about getting me out there. Like I was getting ready to get my uh, passport together, my visa together, and it didn't make sense to renew my lease again because I was supposed to go out there. I moved back home with my parents. At 27 years old, I moved back home with my parents, and it was like 1 month turned into like three, and then something with the Chinese government and the visa didn't work out, and we had to switch the type. 3 months turned into five, and before I know it, I'm at home for a year at 27 years old, and it was tough. Nobody wants to be home at that age, you know what I mean? And you just kind of got to do what you have to do to get by. It's like if you want it, you'll find a way to work 8 hours a day to handle your bills, and then when you get home from work, you boot up the computer and you start working on that next animation shot, and then maybe that's not the shot that goes on your demo reel, so you got to do another one, and you just got to stay with it if you want to follow the dream. And I know that's not like the magic bullet of saying, yeah, just follow your dreams and they'll come true. It's like you got to work for your dreams if you want them to come true, and that's it was a tough pill to swallow because, like I said, I did UCF visual language, I did FIA, did the video game design track, and then I ended up bussing tables. And that was like, it was devastating for, my ego for paying my bills. It was a really rough thing that I had to go through, but I didn't want to give up, so I didn't.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But yeah, when you're struggling, you'll find a way, pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah, exactly.
And that's a great joke or quote you said about the doctors being in the
Yeah.
last of their class.
Yeah, it's
Thank
one of
you.
my favorite jokes when I talk about animation, and I'm telling someone about the industry who knows nothing about it, that I know people who went to Animation Mentor and they washed out and they do something else now. I'm not going to be callous and be like, yeah, they're bagging groceries. Like, no, no, no. They work at like maybe a software company or doing graphic design or maybe web development, but they're not animators. And I think that's again, it's a tough pill to swallow. But the opposite of that is, like I said, what do you call the person who graduates at the bottom of their medical class? Doctor, still a doctor. So.
Yep. Well, thank you for answering my questions.
Absolutely, I'm happy to.
I have another quick question. I know your experience with rigging was a bit sudden, but we are told that rigging is a great way to get your step in the door. Would you agree that that's what happened?
Absolutely. I would probably say, with all sincerity, unless you are a absolute prodigy and you're on your way to Pixar and everyone is telling you that you are some kind of animation genius, please, please pick up a second skill. Because when it comes down to it, if they're looking for a junior or an associate or a or excuse me, a contractor, and they say, "Oh, here's the resume for Izzy." Okay, I like the demo reel, well written cover letter, and then they look over here and they're like, well, this person isn't even as good as of an animator. Oh my god, but they have Python experience or something. It's just like, oh my god, they could help be a pipeline, an animator pipeline developer. Get them on board immediately. I'm not telling you that you need to drop what you're doing right now, stop animation, and learn rigging, or stop animating and learn Python. But try to have some skills that bleed over into adjacent, or I guess parallel, fields, or hats, so you can say that you wear multiple hats. And rigging is a really great way to just step to the side and move forward in parallel with animation, because the two go hand in hand. Some animators are riggers, and once you get your first, second, third, fourth job, if you know rigging, and even if you're not hired as a rigger, but rigging, you could go back to the rigger and just say something along the lines of, listen, the pole vector on the elbow isn't matching up from the shoulder to the wrist. When I switch from IK to FK, there's a bit of a pop. Maybe could we build like a space switching script, or could we re-rig that pole vector to be on the same normal plane or something like that? I'm like, oh yeah, no, absolutely, I didn't know it was broken. Versus just being there like, man, this elbow sucks and I don't know what to do about it. So it's always get a better skill, definitely gets you in the door. Or not, excuse me, not a better skill. I apologize. A second skill will definitely help you get in the door.
Would you say it also made you like a better animator? Because it's like you said, it's better than just saying the elbow it sucks. Then you know exactly what's wrong with it and you know how to fix it.
Um, I don't want to say it made me a better animator in the sense that um my animations were better. I became a more competent animator in the sense that I learned more about human anatomy, and that gave me the knowledge to create like better arcs, like really really truly understanding, the shoulder is a ball joint but the elbow is a hinge joint. It's like, okay, well, everybody knows that, but what does that mean for animation when you're just like doing something as simple as a walk cycle? It's, what axes will the wrist slide through when it's, stuck on a hinge joint on the elbow, versus how this can traverse X, Y, and Z. And you have a feminine walk where like the hands go around the body and a little bit around the back, versus like maybe just this kind of a brisk walk. And it made me more competent and cognizant of what each character should bring to the table. But it is a very good question. It's a great question.
Thank you so much. Okay, are there any more questions in the chat or anybody that would like to speak them? I know we have a small crowd tonight.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it, and we really appreciate just hearing about your journey and all of your insights.
Thanks for
Yes,
having me.
thank you.
Absolutely. Guys, have a great evening and I wish you all the best
Thank
of luck.
you. You as well. Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night.